there is someone shit on the floor. I don't even remember that I did it because it's been so long. And now mom's coming in the door, and I know when those two things are present, things get weird. Yeah. Hi guys, welcome back.
What's up?
We're here today.
We're here today without Seamus.
We gather here today.
Seamus is in Florida, living it up, as we're in Cleveland, here with you. So,
you're welcome.
Welcome back.
We're gonna read some comments.
We're gonna respond, react. Trainers react.
Let's see what we got here from your guys' podcast last week. We have a couple things. You guys were myth busting how dogs feel guilty when they do things that are wrong.
Yes, and that got a lot of interesting comments. Now it's a reel, so it's got even more interesting comments.
Yes, people really, really want to think their dog feels guilt and remorse, but they don't. Even in some of the descriptions they're talking about, where they're like, before, like when I come home and before I've even seen that they've done anything wrong, they're acting weird. Okay, because I don't think you know how like classical conditioning works. So what happens is, because when you come home and there's shit on the floor or they got into the trash can, that being present when you walk in the door ultimately leads to you being mad. So it's if your dog genuinely felt remorse and guilt about doing something and they love you as much as you guys would like to think that they love you, they'd stop doing it. Yeah. But if they don't stop doing it and they keep doing it, it would lead you to believe that they don't actually know it's wrong.
No.
Or they're a psychopath.
Yeah.
And they don't care, I guess.
I argue, like, sometimes I lay in bed at night and I'm like, what feelings and emotions can dogs feel? Yeah. Like,
we'll never really know.
No, but I don't think that they feel remorse or guilt or feel bad for what they did. I don't think that they have that much emotional intelligence. I think they live off of, they're an animal. So they live off like what feels good and like what doesn't feel good. Yes. To them.
Yeah. And there's some dogs that are more sensitive than others, where like your energy changing and becoming like more harsh or stern or even like more monotone, more serious can 100% change their behavior. Yeah. But it's not because they're like, oh, I've disappointed you.
Like Dobby the elf.
Yes. They're not like Dobby, okay? No. They're just like,
stop, Sammy.
You're being weird. Says? You're being weird. Yeah. Why you being weird? Now I'm being weird. Like, that's really all it is. Yeah. It's not that deep, guys. It's really not.
One of the comments that I did want to read through here on one of the reels, somebody just, how do I do? There's a new update or something. Okay. Julie said, sorry, but my dog used to get on the table and steal anything up there because of his I'm guilty face. I knew that he did something bad. He would take it and hide it, and I would look for it everywhere. It didn't happen every day, but he gave me that face every time it happened. We do not punish our dogs or yell. He would get an oh baby at most. Sometimes they just know. Julie? No.
Again, it's the classical association. Like, yes. That's all it is. Dogs are so pattern oriented. Okay? You can't tell me that they can't recognize a pattern of when the trash can is tipped over and mom comes in the door, I'm acting weird even before she's seen it, because I know that the pattern, the way that things go through. When we all have seen our dogs, you put your shoes on. What do? Yeah. They know
Good
the
point.
pattern that indicates. You
keys
pick up a
jingle.
leash.
Yeah.
The keys jingle. I mean, my dog can literally hear when I unplug my phone from my charger and he sits up in his kennel in my room and he's like, oh, it's morning.
Or your alarm goes off and my dogs are like, sweet. Or the Life 360 dings and they're
Yes.
like, Dad's home.
Yeah. Like
So-
they pick up on patterns they're so in tune with that kind of stuff. So that's how they function. They live in the moment with things like that. It's trigger response, like stimulus response, just over and over again. So it's not that far-fetched to believe that it is truly just a pattern of classical conditioning where they're like, oh, there is someone shit on the floor. I don't even remember that I did it because it's been so long. And now mom's coming in the door and I know when those two things are present, things get weird.
Yeah.
And I get really uncomfortable.
Or like in this Julie's example, like looking, she said she looked like frantically for something. And that energy shift may have the dog be like,
yeah.
oh God.
Yeah.
But
what's happening?
I think everybody wants to feel like they have this like special like dog that's set above the rest and they're so much smarter than other dogs and they have feelings and they give you that look and you know that
and
they
also
love you.
let's expand on that situation a little more. Okay. Let's humanize it even more than it already is. If I could, why would you not? So why would you rather allow your dog to frequently, if they're feeling guilt and they know that you're just so disappointed in them and they're having such a hard time with it, why would you rather them go through that rather than just punish them and tell them not to do it anymore?
Yeah.
Same thing with a child, right? It is unfair for a child to perform behaviors that you don't like and you to never tell them, don't do that. You cannot do that. That is inappropriate. I don't like it. But yet every time they do it, you get upset and you get disappointed.
Yeah.
How emotionally confusing is that? Extremely confusing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, you just have to be able to communicate with your dog about like what exactly the behavior you don't want to see anymore is. And it's very easy to manage and correct that. And people that are like, I would never punish my dogs. Like, I'm sure you do punish your dogs.
You do punish your dog in an unfair way.
Yeah.
If you're not deliberately trying to set clear and concise boundaries, you are punishing your dog. You are just doing it unfairly. Okay? It's the same way that parents that don't set clear discipline and boundaries for their children on something and they let things slide and slide and slide and it just irritates them and it irritates them until one day they blow up and they scream at the kid or they yell at the kid because they're frustrated and all this kind of stuff. That is entirely unfair to the child because instead of prioritizing doing it the proper way and having the ability to do that and communicate well with them, you are prioritizing your laziness and your emotions.
And what feels good to you is like to think that you're the best dog mommy in the world and that you'll never punish your dog and you're above punishment. And it's like, grow up.
Yeah. Grow up. You heard it here first, folks.
But, like your dog
Grow
is
up.
looking at you to direct their behavior and they don't think, oh, this is wrong and right. Like they're like, Mom.
Yeah.
And then you allow it and they're like, sweet. That was allowed.
Exactly. Until one day you're yelling at them because they ate a whole pack of chocolate chips off of the counter and they might die. But in reality, you've let them eat a million things off the counter and never let them know that it was wrong.
Oh, Fluffy, that's just her. And you're
Or
like,
quote, oh, baby.
yeah. Oh, baby.
An oh, baby at most.
I was
Don't do
like-
that.
Like petting Pip or something last night and my mom is visiting right now and I was like, I just love Pip so much and she's like, do you think that Pip cares about you?
You're like, I didn't need that slap in the face of reality right now.
And I was like, I like did math in my head and I'm like, I don't know.
yeah, right.
Like she cares about what I can offer her and what she likes, like food and affection and toys.
Yeah.
But does she care about me?
I don't think she does. No. She doesn't. She doesn't look at you and admire you as like,
she's like,
wow, I hope Bridget achieves all of her hopes and dreams with
she's
it.
like, why isn't she giving me what I want? So do dogs care about us? Does she care about you? I'm like,
That was an attack.
damn.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think they do.
No,
If
but
they cared about us, then we would see them like actively act on those
yes,
things. They
like,
don't.
if a dog is like super reactive and they're like, you know what, this is really upsetting my owner
I
when
should
I
stop.
react and drag them down the street, and they're
It's
like,
causing them to cry every single time we go on a walk. They're very emotionally disturbed. I should
Yes.
stop doing these behaviors.
yeah, your dog
But they
doesn't care
don't,
about
do
you.
they? They don't.
Title of the podcast: Your dog doesn't care about you.
Oh,
The
man.
people would.
I
revolt.
don't need any more hate on the internet right now. I've gone through enough. Okay, here's another comment. I also think it's hard for people to distinguish the difference between bribery and positive reinforcement using food rewards.
That's a good one.
I think that's a good thing to distinguish. So, and since we do a lot of puppy programs now, and I get a lot of those, I get a lot of people that say right off the bat, because either they've had dogs in the past or maybe they've done like a couple puppy sessions like elsewhere before coming here, that's like very food heavy, and people have a bad association with using food with training and how it can very easily not work or not go as well as it could. They'll say things to me like, I don't want to, because I'll be like, let's get the treats out, let's get the food out. And right off the bat, they're kind of turned off and they're like, I don't want to use food with training. I don't want my dog to rely on food for forever, things like that. And I'm like, well, it's not the act of using food that makes that, it's using it improperly.
Yes.
And so a lot of people get stuck in like the bribery lure stage forever with using food rewards. And so to me, using food as like a lure is super effective with puppies when you're working on confidence building things. So like getting them to get up on the beds, to get on weird surfaces, to work on elevation things, to get into a kennel, to like do exploratory like confidence building things. Like I'm totally fine with using lures and things like that. But eventually you have to fade out the lure when you're doing things. And I think that's where people struggle is eventually we fade out the lure and we switch to using a marker and then a clear reward. And what that requires is that the puppy perform the behavior that we're looking for first
Before the treat
is even presented to them as like incentive.
Yes.
So with crate training, that could look like the first, couple sessions of getting the puppy comfortable with the crate. I'm literally throwing food in there. So he goes in to eat the food, and then I'm luring him in with the treat, whatever. And then it could look like I'm withholding the food until the puppy goes in, and then I'm giving them food, holding the food, doing that over and over again. And then it could look like the food isn't even around. And I'm having the puppy go in, marking good, then presenting the food. So then the food is coming as a reward. An example that I use with people that really helps clarify for them the difference is, again, a kid example. But say you tell your kid, hey, if you go clean your room, I'll get you ice cream. The reason they're cleaning their room is obviously very clearly because they want ice cream, right? Whereas if you tell your kid, hey, go clean your room, they go, they clean their room, everything's great. And then you say, cool, let's go get ice cream. The next time that you ask them to do something, they are not going to hit you with the, okay, but what am I getting out of it? They're going to do it and be like, I might get something really good after this.
Yeah. Like similar to like if a child is screaming in the store and they're like, I will buy you the waffles if you stop screaming.
Yes.
And then they're like learning like, oh, I make this big fuss and then I get what I want.
Yep. Exactly. Versus if you go to a store one time and your kid is like on their best behavior, doing great. Hey, on the way out, you want a lollipop? Because you did such a good job in here. But you don't present those rewards like as a big incentive right up front, because then they're always going to be reliant on knowing what they're getting out of it, basically.
So you can use food to strengthen behaviors, but in the teaching
Yes.
phase of things, you do lure and teach them what you want and how to achieve the food. Like it's like thinking of yourself as a treat dispenser, and like in
Yeah.
the exact moment that they perform the behavior you want, you start marking, and then eventually they're able to do it on their own.
Yes. Yep. Let's see here. Oh yeah, someone else commented about putting a dog's nose in their pee or poop in the house. It just doesn't work. Like it's literally pointless. Like it doesn't do anything. Dogs are gross. They voluntarily shove their head in pee and poop.
Yeah.
So there's really
They
nothing
eat it.
inherently aversive about doing that to them anyways. My Chihuahua would probably be like, wow, you're participating in my favorite activity. Because he will go out in the yard and find shit and then roll headfirst in it. So
Yep.
I don't think he'd find that aversive at all.
There's a comment that's quite roller coastery.
Okay, let's hear it.
Ruth says, that's why...
Wow, you're really out in there. You said
Hey, Ruth.
Ruth, that's spelled
Hey,
Ruth.
That's why good to take them for a walk before you leave and teach them pee pads for when you're gone, so they have somewhere to go. They get treated for going in the right spot. Dogs have to go to bathroom just like us, and they can't hold it for long periods of time and need to have a safe place to go.
Okay. Here's the thing. If your dog can hold their pee and their poop, okay, age appropriately. Yeah, you need to take your dog out in regular intervals, okay? So if you work like 12 to 14-hour shifts and you have a puppy, then you need some help with that. You can't expect them to hold that all day. Here's why pee pads never work.
It's teaching your dog to go potty in the house.
Yes, okay? You know what's a very clear distinction? Indoors versus outdoors. Okay? You know what isn't a clear distinction? A random corner of your house versus every other random corner of your house. That's not very clear. They're not going to recognize. I have never once heard of a case of a dog that was successfully pee pad trained for its whole life.
Yeah.
That's never happening. Don't kid yourselves.
She also goes on to say, also, dogs can't be outside for long periods of time unless you have air conditioning and heat out there, since they will die of heat stroke, freezing, or animal attack. So putting them back in the yard is never the solution. And it is animal abuse, which many places you go to jail for abusing dogs. That took a turn, Ruth.
That did. That got real serious real fast. No, some dogs live outside and they prefer it and they do just fine.
Like there's this TikTok of these dogs in Alaska that are like a specific breed, and they're working dogs. I don't know what they exactly do, but they have like a barrel and they sleep in a barrel, and people saw
and
that.
like the chain tie outs and stuff.
People saw
It's probably
that.
sled dogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're like horrified, and they're like, these dogs are so abused, and the dogs love their life.
Oh yeah.
And they love their barrels, and that's all they need because they're super insulated. And then they have like hay in their things, and the people are like, these are working dogs.
Yes.
These aren't pets.
They don't want to be in the house on a couch.
No.
That's not. And if you, it's sad because if you look at working dogs that are supposed to be doing their job, like I saw recently, like a game dog that was like in the back of a pickup truck. He had a couple, scratches on his face. He's breathing real heavy. And anyone who looks at this dog would look at it and be like, that is a content dog right there. Like he just had the fight of his life probably won, and he was like, yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
And then all the comments are people being like, give me that dog, he deserves to live in a house where he's safe and he's on the couch. That dog would be so miserable. And if you can look at a dog who is like bred for such a specific purpose and is so good at that purpose and so content doing it, and you just never truly actually been around those dogs then, because you will never see them happier than when they are out and they are doing exactly what they
Yes.
were meant to do.
And it's just like imposing your personal feelings on things. Like when people go to countries and they're like, I'm going to bring you Christianity.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're like, you don't believe what I believe. And it's just like these dogs are happy. These people know what they're doing. Of course, neglect and abuse do happen in the world.
Yeah.
But it's not these situations that where these dogs are working.
No, dogs were not domesticated to sit on your couch.
No. And that's why they have so many problems. You have to give them
Yeah.
trazodone and like
They
give
were
them-
domesticated to help, like, perform jobs for us.
yes.
Like, yeah, your you know, Pomeranians and everything that are truly just like, you know, companion breeds at this point and stuff. Like, yeah, we've fallen pretty far from the tree of domesticating a wolf to perform jobs for us, but they still have that innate desire to do things.
Yes.
And so you have to be willing to allow them to fulfill those needs and those desires. It would be like somebody locking like a human in a basement all day and being like, you should be content with just sitting on the couch and providing comfort for whoever you're there with and not having any desires or passions or anything like that you're allowed to perform or fulfill, which would be silly.
It is. Let your dog do what they want to do.
Somebody else talked about, do you have any videos or advice to help convince people to continue using a slip lead and not switch to a harness? When, like, this one person was specifically saying they like foster puppies, and then when people adopt the puppies, what they do with them from there on out. And I want to say, what you put on the dog, especially in a youngster, has very little to do with them developing bad habits. Like, I'm not against using harnesses with puppies. I recommend it a lot of the time because it's safer. There's less room for error physically and emotionally with using a harness on a puppy. But I also give them direction on how they should allow their puppy to interact with their environment. And that plays a far bigger role in mitigating behavioral issues than just what the leash is attached to.
Yes.
In my experience.
Like as you're in the early stages of developing or training a puppy, you want the association with the leash pressure to mean something, the neck pressure to feel very like they need to understand what to do when they feel it. Yeah, intentional. So we'll actually suggest that people in between our sessions, when you're walking or letting them pee, put them on a harness, because I don't want them to get watered down with the leash pressure. And then I don't want to misuse it where we are hurting a puppy unintentionally.
Yes, I completely agree. That's how I use it too, is I tell people that when you have the mental bandwidth to work on your leash responses and how the dog should be responding to leash pressure, use the neck collar that we give you. But if it's just, we're going for a bop around the block and we're going wherever, like, just pop the harness on and just let them do their thing.
Yes.
But with that, again, the parameters to compromise are nobody pets your dog. Your dog doesn't meet any other dogs when they're out in public. I talk to them how to do like engagement drills using food, how to create like a reinforcement zone where when the dog is close to you, you're giving them reinforcement at that point, how to do counter conditioning if they run into something spooky or scary for them. So like all of those added variables, if the dog isn't able to meet new people or dogs on leash when they're on a walk, it doesn't matter if they're on a harness because it's not going to reinforce any of those behaviors.
It's not the harness that's doing the negative work. It's like how the dog is being conditioned from a young age to walk on that harness.
Yep, exactly. Let's see. Oh, this person on another video was talking about how they worked at a doggy daycare and everything was so chaotic. And they learned a lot of, the dogs were learning bad behaviors from each other or from staff or things like that. And this actually touches on an interesting topic of something I spoke to somebody about recently. Their dog got a couple calls home from the principal at daycare, and they just started training. And I told them, I said, as we're working on how he behaves and his sociability and all that kind of stuff, like, you're going to see a huge improvement with it. But that doesn't mean that he'll be able to go back to daycare and you're going to see like changes in behavior there, because a dog's behavior is only as good as their environment that's enforcing it.
Yes. Yeah.
So like and that's why so many dogs excel at our daycare here, and even are on our like social list, where in other daycares maybe they wouldn't be.
Yes, that's very common.
Is just because like we have standards, and because we're a training facility first, like we enforce all of those standards, and that creates a healthier environment for them to socialize.
Yes.
But a lot of daycares, it's just like mosh pit, free for all.
Yeah.
The daycare workers are throwing toys, they're running around, they're petting them, there's just so many added variables that really complicate it.
It is. Like, I've worked at 2 doggy daycares prior to here, and it was just like the worst jobs in the world. Like,
Well, and it's all like high schoolers.
It is.
Like, it's a lot of people's like first jobs.
Yes, and it's like 90 plus dogs. Like at this one that I worked at was just so heavy with dogs, and it's just like not a good environment. We have clients that ask us like, how can we get them to be able to go to doggy daycare? And I say, you don't. I don't want. I don't want your dog to go to doggy
It's kind of
daycare.
the same as like dog parks.
Yeah, it is the exact same thing as a dog park but you're paying to be there, and you're paying other people and putting your trust in other people to know your dog well enough to read their social cues and keep them safe. And I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. What other comments we got here? Oh, this one's kind of interesting. So on our 4th of July YouTube video, someone said, with my dog, fireworks and things like that, when she's outside of the house, she's not phased at all. But when she is in the house, she loses her mind. And then she said she's an odd duck. She's really not that odd of a duck. That's like a very common thing for dogs to do, is that when they're on their own territory and home field advantage, they're a lot more bold to talk and be a tough guy. But then as soon as you take them out from where they're comfortable, they just like shrink within themselves, and they're like, actually, never mind, I just want to disappear.
Yes, that
like
was
a little wisp of wind.
Hobbs. We recently had a board and train. I love Hobbs. I think he's a great dog. But in the house, they were like, he is the real deal. He will bite people. I'm like, Hobbs? Like
Habanero?
Yes.
Hoblet?
And then at our facility, he was just a perfect little angel boy after he graduated. And then going into his house, again, I went yesterday, and they really had a lot of improvement. But they said, like, everybody there was like, he used to bite people.
What a menace.
He attacks the fence and grabs the fence and tries to bite it. And I was like, what? And then we took him for a walk, and he's like hiding behind his mom. When another dog passed, and he's like, Mommy, help me.
And didn't they say that, wasn't he the one that they had tried to board him somewhere?
Yes.
And they were using the owner said that they used some device to get him in and out of his kennel, which to me, I'm going to surmise it was a catch pole.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a catch pole, which can be really dangerous if you're not properly trained on how to use those. They can be really scary. And that just goes to show again that like a dog's behavior is so dependent on the environment and who's enforcing what and who's allowing what behaviors and all that kind of stuff. Because he was a little spicy when he first came for his board and train. And we saw a lot of the behaviors in the kennel and stuff like that likely the other place was like, I'm not touching that dog. I don't know what to do with that. But because obviously like we're, our whole point is to be able to mitigate a lot of that and teach the dogs and work them through it, we were able to get him to a really good spot with those things. Let's see what other.
We got a crate hate.
Oh, let's hear it.
Let me see if I can find it. It might take me a minute.
Oh, and actually, it's funny you mentioned the crate, because I was going to say with the lady that says they don't punish their dogs, but like they come home and it steals stuff off the kennel. If you don't want to punish your dog, just put them in a crate.
Yeah.
Then they won't even be able to do it all together. Life hack.
Somebody said, I don't understand how y'all talk for every dog. Shaking my head.
How what?
How we talk for every dog.
Oh, like
Power Smart Kennels. What?
What? You're acting like dogs are like a minority group or something. And I'm like, on behalf of all of this type of person or
Yes.
people or whatever, I speak for everyone. No, it's a dog.
Yeah.
It's a dog. They'll be okay. They're not offended.
People hate when you're like, your dog doesn't care about you, or
Yeah.
like your dog doesn't feel the same feelings that you feel toward them.
It hurts
you.
their feelings.
Yeah.
And to go back to what started the barrage of hate recently of people not liking how I said that your relationship with dogs should not be prioritized over your relationship with humans. I think that rubbed people the wrong way so intensely because of this. I think that there are people in the world that either are so terrible that the only the relationships they can maintain are with dogs, that it really just like struck a chord with them, and they got very upset that I devalued the only relationships that they are able to maintain in their life by saying it's not nearly as fulfilling to have a relationship with a dog than it could be to have a relationship with a human.
Yes.
And I think that really hurts your feelings.
Yeah.
And I'm not sorry about it. I think you need to go to therapy.
The crate hate one was from another trainer, Danny. It's crazy how we justify things. My senior dog can have an accident and it's okay. I should be there to increase the frequency of walks. Americans and their non-friendly pet practices.
What
Danny,
does
you
Americans
got
have
me.
to do with this? Us Americans. You hate us because you ain't us. Let's see. What other comments we got?
People are just going back and forth debating about like a big city that they live in. That's where the crate hate comment has. Can we normalize not getting a dog if you don't have a yard and can leave them in when you leave? Please don't leave your dog in the yard if you have a yard.
Yeah, don't just leave them out there. If you live in like a suburb, like city area, please. With oh dear. Sorry, I just got lost in people.
I know.
I'm just like, oh no, this is going down a scary path.
As it always does.
Yeah, it's a little alarming. There is such a big difference between like dog people and dog lovers.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's a really good point.
There is a really big difference.
The Pibble
with that.
Mommy.
Oh, the Pibble mommies, and like I can't.
Like when people like make voices for their dogs, like they have their own Instagrams. They're like, "I really enjoyed my walk. I positively really enjoyed my walk with Mommy today."
Oh my god.
Unfollow. Block.
Or all the captions are written as if they're the dog.
Yeah. From the dog's perspective.
Oh man. Listen, I too spend a lot of time like creating occupations and backstories for my dogs and client dogs. You know, it would not be uncommon for me to look at a dog and be like, that dog chain smokes. Mm-hmm. Like, listen, okay, yeah. I get it. I get how that stuff goes. But there's also a difference between like, you know, having a good time with that and the people that like really, really
lean into it or
lean into it. Yeah. And just take it a little bit too far. To me, it's a good sign if you can like roast your dog.
Yes.
Yeah,
I can roast all of my dogs.
Yeah, if you can roast your dog, that's a really good sign. That means you don't take things too
You
seriously.
to Cash the other day when you're like, you're crusty, dusty. And he's sitting on the couch with his legs spread and he's like,
Listen, I love that little fucker, but he is a crusty, dusty,
Yes.
scaly, lumpy old man doodle. Okay? I was warning everybody. It was a public service announcement.
Yeah.
I was like, if you get a doodle, this is what they're going to look like when they're 12.
Yes. Yeah.
And it ain't pretty.
No.
Okay? It ain't pretty. God love him. God bless his little heart. Actually, since we're just bebopping with topics today, for some reason, my For You page on TikTok has been just bombarded with people that have like really insane allergies and stuff like that. I don't know why. I don't know what it's trying to tell me. But a number of them are like very, very allergic to dogs. And it opened up a whole new lens of, obviously I'm very like, don't let your dog off leash if they don't have good behavior, but opened up a whole new world of like, you could literally kill someone. Like if they had terrible dog allergies and your dog runs up and touches them, licks them, whatever, and they just go into anaphylactic shock. You're fucked, man.
Like there's some people that are truly allergic to like dog saliva too. Like,
yeah.
Saliva on its own can like make them break out and have trouble breathing.
Like there was literally a girl I saw a video of. She was filming, and then she was on a hike, and these two random dogs come flying over the hill out of nowhere, and she like had to run off the path really quick, and she like yelled at the people like, I'm like deathly allergic to dogs, like can you please keep your dog on a leash, whatever. And the people were so rude and dismissive. And she was like, she's like, I literally, like, if one of those dogs would have licked me, she's like, I cannot breathe. Like, I have such a bad reaction to them.
That's scary. Yeah, you never think of that.
Yeah, I didn't think of it either until I saw stuff like that. And I was like, wow, that's like a whole nother realm. I wonder how common it is to have like a allergy to dogs that is that severe. Yeah. But still, I mean, that's something to consider that could be really scary.
Or like when people have to take their dogs everywhere in public and like not pet friendly stores. Like you see that little crusty MFer in the cart at Target and you're like, should you be here?
You really look like you're providing a service to somebody.
And it's just like a chaotic old lady that's like, that's my service dog.
Yeah.
And it's being nothing but a nuisance.
Yes. And it's so funny because like, and my clients know this about me because I don't mince words, but I'll get people that'll ask like, oh, I've thought about registering him as a service dog or whatever. I don't trifle with those things. And I lay it out straight to you. And I say, I'm all for service dogs, but like what service would he be providing to you?
And they're like emotional.
And I'm like, okay, then that's an ESA. That's not a service dog.
And their intention a lot of the times like is to be able to bring the dog on like airplanes or into any store that they want. And it's just really not ethical to make any dog that. No. Especially if your dog has a history of biting or aggression. It's super fucked up.
Yeah. And I mean, I've already said this before. I just don't agree with emotional support dogs in general. I don't think that it's ethical to use an animal to absorb all of your negative emotions and anxiety. I've never seen that work out well for the dog.
Get therapy.
Yeah, go to therapy, please. That would be like a codependency on another human. Yeah. Like that's not effective.
It's helpful. Like Nelson is an ESA from when I lived in an apartment and the place was like pet rent or ESA. And I was like ESA. And then I didn't have to pay pet rent. Yeah. So
yeah. If you're gonna skirt the system, like, and people allow ESA, like that to me is like a little less. I still think your dog should be very well trained and well behaved and not a danger in any way to like say that they're one of those. But because the law does not protect ESAs. No. Like if the dog behaves poorly or somebody doesn't want to rent to you regardless of an ESA, they are legally within their bounds to do that. And so you're not really damaging the perception of like service animals in that in the same way as if you were like trying to claim that you have like protection under ADA laws and stuff like that.
Like when you get a service dog vest on Amazon and like it comes with a little card, like one of my clients,
there is no, to clear it up, there's no
Yes.
formal registration for service dogs.
Yeah.
There's
got
no formal
scams.
training. You shouldn't have to pay to say that your dog is a service dog. Like the most common way to acquire a service dog is either through like a facility that trains service dogs for people, or there are private trainers that train service dogs for people, or some people do owner training service dogs, which I think is a little dicier in my opinion. But if you're working with a trainer or something like that, then that makes a little bit more sense. But you shouldn't have to like pay to say it's a service dog.
Or like dogs like seeing eye dogs or something, from the time that they're bred, like they get knocked out so quickly, like if they don't have the right temperament for it, and they really put like their thousands and thousands of dollars to teach these dogs. And their temperament has to be like just right.
No, it's a very rigorous selection process for service dogs that will actually like perform well on the job and can do it properly. And there is 100% breeds that are suited to do service dog work and breeds that are not suited to do service dog work.
Pibble.
Yeah. What is it? The Fab Four: Golden Retrievers, Labs, Collies, and Poodles. Those are like the 4 most common service dog breeds.
Yes.
Because they just do the best.
Service mini pony.
I did. Yeah. I did. A lot of times the service miniature horses are like mobility aids.
Okay.
Because they're a little bit sturdier.
Okay.
So they're for people that have like mobility issues.
Man.
Yeah. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Imagine taking that on a plane.
Yeah. You could just be like, yeah, me and my mini pony are here.
Yeah. And how it poops on command.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. You don't want that thing pooping inside. That'd be worse than a dog, I think.
I was training this dog yesterday for a sent home, and like we'd been in here for a long time, and I could tell that the dog had to poop.
Yeah.
And it just is like that feeling.
Yeah.
And I was with this like sweet angel of a woman, and it's just a little bit of an older lady, and I was like, okay, we're gonna take the dog for a walk, and then I'm gonna say okay, and then he's gonna poop, because I knew he had to poop. And she was convinced that when she said okay to him that he would poop every single time on command. She was like, you teached him how to poop on command? And I was like, no.
I just had a good intuition.
It was so sweet.
Poop tuition.
She was like, oh my God. This place is really worth the 5-star reviews.
I love that. You can train your dog to poop on command.
Yeah.
Lumos knew how to poop on command, but it was still kind of with that. I feel like there's nuance where it's like, you have to know they have to go to the bathroom, and that you're just now giving them the opportunity, and I need you to go right now within the next 5 minutes. The one time I was convinced he had to go poop, and I was in the middle of like a seminar thing. And so I only had like 2 minutes to like get him to go poop. And I took him outside, and I like kept telling him over and over again, I'm like, go poop, go poop. He literally squatted in the poop position and stared at me as like nothing was coming out of his butthole. And I was like, no, touche.
He doesn't
I guess you didn't have to poop. What else? What's our next topic? Any other comments?
Let's see. I just got lost in the rabbit hole of some of these.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to just spiral when you're reading some of these comments.
71 comments.
Oof. Which one? Are you looking at Reels?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at the YouTube comments.
It's
so
like,
we're covering our bases.
One that's like, you can start training your puppy really early, and people just are having a lot of feelings about that.
Listen, the word training can mean so many different things. We're not talking about teaching your 8-week-old puppy to like down and sit and heel. We're talking about like creating good habits from a very young age. and making sure that you're creating routines and consistency and all that good stuff. Oh yeah, puppy mills. What were we talking about that somebody brought that up? Oh, our podcast about acquiring a good dog. And they said that we didn't talk about puppy mills.
Yeah.
I would like to think that in this day and age, everyone knows puppy mills are bad.
Well, there's still clients like that come in and I'm like, oh, where'd you get them? And they're like, a puppy mill. Like,
Yeah.
Or they suspect that it's from a puppy mill when they didn't know any better.
Yeah, and they just felt bad leaving it there,
Yes.
so they bought it. Stop buying the dogs that you know are from a puppy mill, because you're literally just creating more demand for them.
Petland, like
pet stores,
like anything like that.
Any good ethical breeder is not going to sell their puppies in bulk to a pet store. Who a lot of times those puppies end up going home with parvo or anything like that. They're not going to just bulk sell their dogs so that you can just rehome them willy-nilly and charge like $5,000 from a pet store.
Yeah, a good breeder like loves their dogs well enough to want to have them be in a good home.
Yep. So if you're not getting your dog directly from the breeder, that's just an immediate red flag right there.
Or they're like, we had to drive way out into the country and we went down a back road and it was dirt and there was many different kinds of breeds there.
And they wouldn't let us in the barn.
No.
For some reason, they wouldn't let us in there.
That is always the sentence. They wouldn't let us in the barn.
Yeah. They brought the puppy out to us, but they wouldn't let us in there. Oh, did you meet the parents? No, they said that we couldn't, but I saw them through the fence. Red flags, everybody. If it feels weird, it is weird.
Or if there's like a free puppy sign on the end of like when you get off the highway and it's like puppies for sale or free puppies.
Oh my gosh. I see those all the time. Or like I saw the other day, literally a piece of paper with like Sharpie on it that was like Yorkies for sale with the phone number plastered in the window of somebody's car. Don't do that. When I was at Edgewater for a lesson once, and it was the French Bulldog meetup.
Oh,
I've never seen so many Frenchies that were on the brink of death in my entire life. And this one man had a wagon full of just medical bills. Just probably 10 long-haired Frenchies. And all I did was have to walk by for him to be like, $5,000 and try to get me to pay $5,000 for that mutant.
They really think they're doing something.
They really think that it's like a black market trade of French bulldogs and the exotic bullies.
It's very sad.
Yeah, it is a little bit disheartening to see. They're just treated as like a source of income. It's like selling a pair of shoes.
Yes.
Oh, I'll end it on this. If you, the only valid excuse you have if you've adopted a rescue dog and had it since it was like under 4 months old, for their behavior being poor at some point down the line when you've had them, is that they're poorly bred. Not that they're a rescue dog.
That they have an abuse in their past.
Yeah. No, the people that are like, the dog is like 6 and they're like, oh, well, he was a rescue. Oh, how old did you just get him last week?
Yeah. Like, no, we've had him for 8 years. But
there's a time limit on that excuse.
We think that somebody put plastic bags over his head and tried to suffocate him, because anytime a plastic bag blows, he just freaks out.
He panics.
And you're like sitting there and you're like, what a story.
One of the most extreme things I ever heard was they said that their dog must have been abused by a man that had blue eyes and smoked cigarettes. because anyone who has blue eyes he doesn't like. And if they smell like cigarettes, he doesn't like them either.
You know, I love the stories that people create. It is a little bit entertaining.
I guess it's easier to think of a story than to just change your dog's behavior.
Yes. Yeah, and make excuses for your dog's behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just this way because they had a hard past.
Yep. And just let them revel in that. Don't do anything to help them.
People are like, Jeffrey Dahmer's mom was abusive to him. So he ate people?
Okay. What a nice journey to go down.
Yes.
Really connects the dots.
His genetics were fucked, probably.
Yeah, there was a genetic predisposition there, 100%. But yeah. Thanks for joining us today, guys. Thanks for bearing with us as we just, hopped around.
Yeah.
Hopped around on some different topics.
Let us know if you want us to talk about anything else next week.
Perfect. Bye, everybody. See you later.